For most people, having a paycheck is very important to you, your family, your livelihood, and a whole host of other factors. Today on The Money Nest, we're going to talk about something that you might receive every week, every 2 weeks, or even monthly. Welcome to the Nest, and let's spin this up and get into the details.
Welcome to The Money Nest, your source to not becoming a financial liability. You will learn how to become fiscally responsible, save money, and grow that nest egg of yours. The Money Nest is proudly sponsored by A1 Bookkeeping Services, serving small to medium-sized businesses with bookkeeping and providing tax services to people just like you. You can find out more info about them at a-1bookkeeping.com. Now, here are your hosts, Suzanne and Mark McKinney.
Hi everyone, I'm Mark.
And I'm Suzanne.
Welcome back to the Money Nest. Most of us take a paycheck for granted, and at a time where your health or job stability may impact that paycheck, the whole issue of getting paid from your employer becomes a very real factor.
Sure does.
Maybe you found out the hard way. If you have a few years under your belt, then you've likely come across this yourself at some point or another. But if you're new to employment, it's only a matter of time. Job disruptions happen all the time. It's best when it's planned, but it isn't always.
That's right. It's really unfortunate, too, when it does happen when it's not planned. But believe it or not, there are a lot more factors in understanding your pay from your employer or from wherever you get your paycheck from. You should never just get paid and accept that as the fact or believe that everyone behind the scenes knows what they're doing, because trust me, they don't always. Problems with your paychecks can snowball into a huge effect. Now it can create some serious financial issues that won't go away on their own. You've got to look at yourself because nobody else is going to do that for you. You can always get advice from a tax preparer or a financial advisor, but at the end of the day, it's up to you and you alone. Now, the advice from a good, reputable tax preparer, bookkeeper, or accountant is a start in the right direction. But getting advice from somebody else, unfortunately, typically tends to more problems than not, because they don't always know the laws or the procedures, and oftentimes they make assumptions when it's not even their money that's on the line.
Let's look at some of the factors to consider. For example, pay stub layout will vary depending upon your country, your province, state, employer, and more.
Now, you also have to understand how to read your pay stub, because there are a bunch of various factors that are really important. You got to always remember that it's not just ink on a page. You've got to read it carefully, each and every pay. You've got to address issues even if they are small. And if issues are found, you need to report them to your payroll department or your payroll person and check with them on the next paycheck to make sure that what you've reported has been resolved.
The name and address on a pay stub is something you may take for granted, as it's always there. But it does have a huge impact on things like your year-end remuneration tax slips, such as a T4, termination of employment report, such as record of employment, mailing of pay stubs, and date.
Watch out for a few other things on your pay stubs too, like your dates, your pay date, and your pay period date. Watch out for your hours and your gross earnings.
And finally, the other thing you want to take into consideration is your deductions. Your pension, employment insurance, and income tax. All very real and important factors. I have to say this again. The rules of varying deductions depend upon where you live, so we'll try to keep things rather general if we can. You may have a deduction on your pay stub for a pension. Paying into pension is very important. It helps to put away money for the future. Your employer may be adding money into your pension as well by matching your contributions up to a maximum percentage or dollar value. You may have a government-mandated pension outside of the company pension that you are paying into. Some government pension contributions may only start when you reach a certain age, like 18. Even when some pensions may be required at a certain age, the same could be said for when you hit age 60 or 65. These requirements for contributing may be reduced or no longer required. If you're already drawing on a pension and still working, you may not be required to pay into the pension benefits.
Now, the second biggest deduction you're going to likely notice is going to be employment insurance or unemployment. Again, like pensions, this deduction has its own rules as well. Now, likely it's deducted on all of your earnings. There's probably no threshold that you've got to make first to pay into it. So there's no minimum amount that you need to earn before you start to pay on each and every paycheck. Now, the deduction is exactly what it says. It's a payment into a government plan to help cover you in case you lose your job, you go out on parental or maternity leave, you go out on sick leave, or if you have other qualifying factors. Now, it's not a deduction that we all like to pay into because it usually means that if you receive the benefit of this plan, then something unpleasant has happened to your employment, or that you can no longer work for a period of time, or at all. Of course, this is aside from parental leave, of course.
Now, the granddaddy of all deductions, in our opinion, is income tax. Well, they say two things are for sure in life, death and taxes. And others may say the taxes will be the death of me. Nobody likes to pay taxes, but this is how we have a civilized world, by paying for emergency services, highways, social benefits, military, and the list goes on. With that said, income tax is where things generally go wrong, if they're going to go wrong at all.
Of course. Now, you can be over-deducted. Now, that means that although you might get this money back, you're going to have to wait until you file your tax return to get it back. That also means that the government is holding on to that money interest-free, and they're not even going to give you a thank you for it. Now, you might also be under-deducted. This is where problems can begin, and it can cause hardship if it's not calculated correctly. You might get less of a tax refund, or heaven forbid, even owe. That's typically when you least expect it or can afford it. Now, you may have to also pay last year's taxes as well as make installments towards the next year. If you have multiple sources of income that are under-deducted, then you're going to need to make sure that that doesn't happen, because that's when the problem gets compounded.
Now, you may have an incorrect claim code. Solution? Fix it with your payroll department or whomever sends your payments. Update your tax details with your payroll department when something changes in your financial life that may impact your taxes. If in doubt, call your tax preparer or federal government for a consult.
If you don't break even or come close to breaking even on your tax return, there may be different things that need to be fixed. If you're getting back big refunds and you're okay with the government holding on to your money, then you're good. But if you owe, well, now is the time to investigate and fix that problem.
Holding off and fixing your income tax problems will create worse issues as you move forward. So make it a priority to fix the problem in days so that you don't go through the rest of the year and have the problem persist. It'll just cost you more in the end.
Yeah, it's like knowing that you've got a leak in your car tire. Well, you go and get it fixed, because if you know that if you don't, then you're going to have to pay to have the entire tire repaired, as opposed to just paying for a small little patch. And you never know, it could actually save your life, in this example anyways. So a lot has been said about your paycheck, and believe it or not, there's a lot more to talk about, and we could be here forever. We did comment on the factors that impact us all. So consider some of these things. If you do work shift work and your hours change, make sure that you're being paid the right number of hours each and every time. You should also ask yourself if you're getting a pay stub for every pay. Now, in most jurisdictions, it might be the law for you to get a pay stub. Remember, it's your time invested into your income. You are entitled to see what you're being paid for what period you're being paid for as well, and where all those deductions are going to. The deductions are still your money. You need to know how it's being applied. And you should also find out about the other deductions that are being paid. Things like union dues, uniforms, social committee, medical, and government garnishes.
Okay, ask yourself these questions. When was the last time I got a pay stub from my employer? Do I always get a pay stub with every pay? Do I owe when I file my taxes? Do I get a refund when I file my taxes? Do my pay stubs show my deductions? Does my pay stub show the period that I'm being paid for? All very important and real questions.
Now, as we mentioned before, when your financial situation changes, it's extremely vital that you give those changes some consideration as well. Things to watch out for are when you're working 2 or more jobs at the same time, when you're drawing on employment insurance or unemployment, when you receive pensions or old age security benefits, if you're attending post-secondary school, if you or your spouse have a disability, if you have a spouse that has been unemployed and has no income, if you're taking care of an infirm dependent, if you're going to be splitting your pensions at tax time, or if you're transferring funds to another person. Well, we could keep adding to this list, but these are some of the special considerations that you need to keep in mind.
I bet you never thought there was so much to consider about your pay stub. Your pay stub is not only a recap of your payroll, but it can be considered a tattletale of what might be going wrong when you complete your year-end tax return. All the money that you earn over the course of the year ends up in your income tax return. If you see a crack in your house foundation, this will create problems in your home later. Pay stubs and tax returns are extremely closely related as well.
Of course, you don't want water in your foundation, that's for sure. Now here at the Money Nest, we like to keep things simple, back to basics, and most importantly, grassroots for understanding money, finances, credit, and more. Understanding your payroll and how it's reported on your pay stub is exactly that. It is the basics, although in many ways it's not the beginning, as we could walk this back further to when and where you learned about your money, who explained it to you, and finally, how it was explained to you.
Your income, how it's reported, how you end up at year end with your income tax return depends largely on you. Yes, mistakes can happen with your payroll department, but those issues need to be identified and fixed right away. Not next week, because every time a pay period comes and goes, you are snowballing the issue into something bigger, harder to deal with later. Assuming your tax preparer doesn't make an error when processing your income tax return, the outcome of the balance owing or refund is on you, and you share the biggest burden of that issue, if an issue exists.
If you're new to working and you don't really understand what your pay stub is telling you, ask those questions. When you do ask, be sure to ask someone who is knowledgeable, not just someone who thinks that they know or makes things up to pretend that they sound intelligent. Generally, pay stubs are not difficult to understand, but we also recognize that not everyone has that certain knack for money and finances. Therefore, we try to keep things at a level that most people can understand.
If you have children in their early years of work, this is a great opportunity to teach them to be better employees, respect their job, their employer, and coworkers, understand their employment rights, getting acquainted with their payroll system, not just accept the check and assume all is good, understand the flow of their pay days and what period it covers. Is vacation pay included in each pay? And understanding vacation cycles. Remember, you as the parent have years and years of knowledge under your belt. Teach the youth so they will become better, stronger, and more effective citizens. By you helping people new in the workforce, in turn, it will help you and others.
That's so very true, Mark. Now, working is not a right. It's a privilege, just like having a driver's license is. Respect all the parties involved. Now, keep in mind, your employer did not have to hire you. You're working at your job under the graciousness of your boss. Now, this doesn't mean that you can get walked on at work, but assuming that you are being respected, you and your kids getting into the workforce will form these good habits.
We believe strongly in teaching those who want to learn. Sometimes the little things will go a long way, or maybe it's a matter of hearing the advice from people like ourselves because they won't listen to mom and dad. At the end of the day, we must give our all in the job. If you don't give 100% of yourself every day, should your employer be responsible for giving 100% of your pay? Did you earn it?
So, let's ask you, do you have any tips or tricks that you used when you started working or getting back into the workforce after a long stint of not being employed? Or maybe your son or daughter is just of that ripe age of being employed. Sound off. Let us know your thoughts and ideas. Send us an email at info@themoneynest.com or leave us a comment on our Facebook page. We'd love to share your thoughts to the world. anonymously, of course.
Now, we did spend a lot of time talking about kids and teaching them right and wrong, what they should do in the earlier years. But we also believe in creating that seed. A tree doesn't become a strong tree on its own. You have to plant a seed, nurture it, and it becomes a strong tree and becomes very useful, giving oxygen and shade and beauty to our society. So this is why we spend so much time in teaching from the ground up.
It's like you have to remember that it starts small and it grows into something, and that something can be beautiful. We all do it together. Now, the Money Nest has been brought to you by A1 Bookkeeping Services, where they specialize in bookkeeping for small business. They also do personal and business tax returns, all at affordable rates. Do you need a bookkeeper or a tax preparer? Give A1 Bookkeeping Services a call. You'll be glad that you did. Check them out on Facebook or at a-1bookkeeping.com.
We hope this episode of The Money Nest was informative about your payroll and understanding more about your pay stubs. It's amazing how it's all intertwined with each other.
Thanks everyone for listening. Join us next time here at The Money Nest. Bye for now.
You've been listening to The Money Nest with your hosts, Suzanne and Mark McKinney, brought to you by A1 Bookkeeping Services. We're your source to help you become financially successful while assisting you in building for your future. For more information, visit us at themoneynest.com or send an email to info@themoneynest.com. Don't forget to subscribe so you can be notified when our next episode is released.